Today we're going to be playing Matchmaker a little bit as I'm going to be trying to book some of the fights that I think should be made for some of the fighters that are on the main card of UFC 306. And we're just going to get straight into it, starting with Merab Philly, the new champ. You know, a lot of people are shitting on this fight and shitting on this performance. I don't think so, man. You know, I know Sean kind of was hesitating a little bit, or at least it looked like he was, kind of had a hard time getting in the swing of things. I don't know if that was the pressure of this fucking big event, or just being like the star they're trying to push right now, or what. Because it was a massive event that was highly kind of based around him, but I don't know. I don't want to take anything away from Merab's win because the cardio was on full display. The wrestling was on full display. I think O'Malley... Well, I don't want to talk about O'Malley the whole time because we're going to get to him. Okay, Merab versus Umar, dog. It's 98% chance the fight that we're going to get. I don't really see anyone else in the division because Figgy versus Jan, I think, is the next fight to make. I know Figgy is so close to a title shot, but in my opinion, needs one more. I know he's 3-0 bantamweight right now, and not to say that he's not killing it because he is. But yeah, I think Umar has had, you know, a bit of a spoiled brat route to the title, only beating, I think, entered the rankings by being the number 15 guy, and then kind of went straight up to Corey, who's number 2. I don't fucking make the rules, but I feel like this is the fight we're getting anyways, and honestly, it's pretty intriguing. I'm really curious how Merab's gonna do against Umar's wrestling as well, because that's gonna be... I'm just really interested in the grappling exchanges, you know, because Umar has really good wrestling, but also he's known to be a standout striker, which I think is an interesting contrast to Merab, who is someone who also is wrestling heavy, but kind of has a bit of pillow hands, kind of doesn't have great striking, so it's going to be interesting to see how those two match up. I feel like if we did see O'Malley versus Umar, it was just going to be a Conor versus Khabib 2.0, which not to say that that wouldn't have been fun, but seeing how, I don't want to say easily, you know, but seeing how efficiently Merab beat Sean, it makes me kind of glad that we didn't get that matchup. I don't know. I'm pretty intrigued in this. I know Umar and Merab aren't the biggest names. I know Umar's got the Nurmagomedov, so maybe he is, but, and, you know, Merab fucking just won the main event of the Spear, so maybe he is now, but I'm really interested in this fight. I want to see Merab, I want to see his wrestling stack up against Umar's. I want to see if Merab can keep the pace and the pressure and the cardio and just lay it on Umar, because both these guys do the same thing to their opponents, and, like, you know, they're the guys that fucking dominate, and whether it be on the feet for Umar, or whether it be in the cardio and the grappling for Merab. Not to say that Umar doesn't have those things, but I want to see these guys go against each other. I mean, fuck, dude, Merab is beating 4 former UFC champions now. The guy is a machine. I think even with Umar's little bit of a rushed kind of trip to the title, I don't know. I don't really know any other matchups to make for him, because you could give him Cejudo. You could give him Figgy. You could give him Jan, but I think Figgy needs to fight Jan, and I'll get to Cejudo in a second. So yeah, I think this is the next fight. We're getting it no matter what. We can move on to Sean O'Malley now. This is an interesting, because a lot of people are already calling out O'Malley, as they should. You know, he's the money guy, and bantamweight's a hot fucking division right now, and a bunch of people are chirping, calling him out. But as much as I think O'Malley versus Cejudo is a really good bounce back, Cejudo is one of the bigger names in the division. It'd be interesting because we could see O'Malley bounce back in regards to the wrestling, because we could, you know, he just got dominated on the ground. So this is kind of his bounce back. Like, okay, we can learn something about O'Malley, how he handles these losses. So how is he going to come into this? Is he going to focus heavily on the grappling in his camp? Is he going to be relying on getting the knockout with his, you know, crisp precision? Like, what's going to happen? So as much as that fight would make sense, and I think Henry would be a great test for him, I think O'Malley would win. I just want to put that out there. I think O'Malley versus the Sandman, Corey Sandhagen, I think that's the fight to make. Now, I think Cejudo, again, bit of a bigger draw, going to be a bit of a, stylistically, bit of a more test for O'Malley. Bit of a bigger test, I should say. Not that O'Malley would just walk through Corey, but I'm being a bit picky and choosy here, because I'm being a little selfish, because I know that Corey versus Sugar is such a fun fight to make. At the end of the day, it's a fun matchup. You got these two guys who, you know, they're not going to go to the ground. You actually, with Corey might throw in some takedowns. You never know, because, you know, he's been focusing a bit on the wrestling lately. But Corey's here to bang. One of the most entertaining fighters in the division. You could say the exact same thing about Sean. Sean, it would be interesting to see how his takedown defenses improve. But, I mean, against Sandhagen or Cejudo, but still, I mean, this is just a really fun fight. I think it makes sense for both guys. Corey is 3-1 in his last 4 and lost to the guy that's about to fight for the title. O'Malley obviously was undefeated in the UFC. Okay, besides the Cheeto fluke, but undefeated in the UFC besides the guy who's the champion. So both of the guys that these two just lost to are about to fight each other. So why not have these two go at it? You know, they're both in the top 5. It's going to be such a fun fight. It's going to be fireworks on the feet. I don't think O'Malley KOs him, but I think we're going to get a really fun back and forth, crisp striking, power shots on and off, clean technique, amazing footwork, dynamic striking kind of bout. And I'm really excited for it. So I think that this is the fight to make. You can make this, I mean, it's kind of got to be a co-main, maybe to a really big card. Maybe you could do like a McGregor main event, and then you could have O'Malley as the co-main, or maybe make this the co-main of Merab versus Umar. I don't know, but it's a really big fight. I know that Cejudo, again, is a bigger name, but just book it. You know, I think a lot of fans are asking for it. I know, too, Petr Yan wants that rematch, and I would love to see Yan versus O'Malley, too. Okay? That is a rematch that needs to happen at some point. I think O'Malley barely got the edge in their first fight. I know that about 70-80% of people, I'd go with 70. I think 70% of people thought that, you know, Sugar fucked over Yan, and Yan got robbed, and Yan won that first fight. And I'm not going to dispute any of that because it's a really close fight, and I get why a lot of people think that. I'm not going to, like, defend this. It was really competitive, and it's a super fun fight. And to run that back would be amazing. I have no idea who would win. I have no fucking idea. I would lean towards Yan. The only reason why I don't say make that fight is because I think Yan versus Figgy just makes more sense for both guys. Yeah, that's about that. I think O'Malley has a lot of options right now, which is great. Up next for Diego Lopes. What a fucking stunner. Actually, well, I should probably touch a bit on the co-main really fast, as much as nobody wants to talk about it. I don't even know what the fuck to do with Grasso. I don't keep up with women's MMA enough. Shevchenko, man, I don't want to say she shit the bed, because technically, I mean, not technically, she did dominate Alexa Grasso. She dominated her start to finish, just held her down. I think Grasso had 1 or 2, you know, kind of close submission attempts, but man, she got fucked. The second fight, it was a draw with pretty weird judging, and I would say 90% of people thought that Shevchenko won that fight. I agree it was close, but I still think Shevchenko took it. They can't run it back and forth time, you know? Grasso, I don't know what to do with, but Shevchenko, man, it had a boring fight, man. It was a really boring fight. A lot of people are shitting on the main being boring, but I thought that was at least leagues more interesting than this one, man. It was just Shevchenko sitting on her. And I get that it's total domination, but I feel like it kind of ruined the flow of the card. Whatever. It happens. Sometimes you get boring fights. Not to take anything away from Shevchenko, but I would put her against, I don't know how to say her first name, Anan, whatever the fuck. Fiorot. I mean, dude, this girl is 7-0 in the UFC, coming off wins over Blanchfield and Namajunas. 12-1 record, 7-0 in the UFC. Again, I don't know too much, but I do know this girl. I've seen a few of her fights. She's good, she's crisp, and I think it's just the only fight that makes sense for Shevchenko. Give her something new. Get out of this fucking trilogy. Now we're on to Diego Lopes. Now we can cook a bit. So the tricky thing with featherweight is because there's a bit of a log jam going on with the title picture, because Holloway is fighting Topuria in late October, and then you have Volkanovski, who is pretty much confirmed to be after that. Maybe that takes place in like the summer. I mean, earliest, because Topuria is not the most active guy. You know, not to say he's a bum that's sitting on the fucking sidelines. Of course not, but we're in a logjam. And you have a bit of time. You have a few months. There's a few fights going on right now at featherweight, or fights that could be made, that are kind of trying to like figure out who's going to be the next contender. You know, we have Evloev and Sterling that's coming up. Diego Lopes, though. Oh my fucking God, dude. Beat 3 ranked opponents from the span of April to September. He beat Yusuf in April, and then he beat Ige in June, and now he just beat Ortega, who's ranked number 3. This guy is insane. He's the real deal. Such powerful, dynamic striking, and his Brazilian jiu-jitsu game is nuts as well. A lot of people, I feel like, overlook it because we haven't seen a bunch of it. You know, I wish / thought it was going to be implemented more in the fight with Ortega. That was a primarily standing fight. Thought we were going to see a little bit more on the ground. But nonetheless, I mean, this guy is fucking killing it right now, and he's a real contender. I mean, I knew the kid was good, but dude, for one, I thought Ortega was going to win that fight. Man, I mean, Lopes just blew him out the water, man. And Ortega, you know, made it kind of competitive, but overall, man, I mean, Lopes just fucked him up, dude. And I think you got to give him the loser of Topuria and Holloway. I think that makes sense because Volk is next for the title. If Volk wasn't next for the title, there would be no question that I think this guy should either face the winner of Sterling and Evloev or just give him the title shot right away. I think that those would be the only two things that make sense. But because we're in a bit of a jam, I think give him the loser of Topuria and Holloway. But they're both huge tests, Topuria and Holloway. You know, I know that Lopes has already been tested pretty heavily, and he's come on top. He's passed all these tests with flying colors, man. So to go out there and, like, I think not only would it be more entertaining to see him face the loser of Topuria Holloway than fight the winner of Evloev Sterling, I just feel like it makes a bit more sense. Like, maybe give, I don't know how that fight, what those guys are going to do, but I just think it makes sense. The division is just kind of all over the place, and we're waiting on Volk, so I don't know. Up next, speaking of T-City, Brian Ortega, dude, he's interesting because, you know, as much as it'd be fun to kind of mix him up with some of the featherweights, I think it's time for him to move to lightweight. He has talked heavily about moving up to lightweight after this fight. If he won, I didn't know if he was still planning on moving up or not, but he lost at the end of the day. And again, he's been hitting towards it heavily and just straight up saying that's what he wants to do. So I think you put him against Beneil Dariush. I think there's fun matchups for him at lightweight. I think it's going to be fresh to have Ortega thrown in there. But there's not a lot for him at featherweight, and I think Dariush makes a lot of sense. I think it's a winnable fight for Dariush and competitive, and I could say the same for Ortega. I think it's a winnable fight and competitive enough for Ortega, so makes sense for both guys. But Neil's kind of in a rut lately, I think coming off his last 2 losses via KO. And then you have Ortega, who was 2-3 in his last 5, and is finally starting to get more active. I mean, shit, he was barely fighting at all, and then he's already fought twice this year, so I love to see the activity from Ortega, and I say get the ball rolling still. Maybe early 2025, get him in there against Dariush, who is also, I don't think we've seen Dariush fight this year. So, and I don't know if he will fight this year. There's been no announcements or any news yet. So, or any rumors, whatever the fuck you want to call it. So this fight makes sense. Early 2025. Beneil is one of those guys where he's dangerous on the feet and on the ground. I think a lot of people are fucking shitting on him and sleeping on him because of his last 2 performances. But it's like, you know, he lost to Charles Oliveira, the former champ, and a top 5 lightweight, and then he lost to Arman Tsarukyan, who was next for the title. I mean, there's no shame in losing to those guys. I just think this fight makes sense. And last, but definitely not least, well, technically least, but all due respect to the kid Raul Rosas Jr. Oh my God, I'm sorry. So this kid, dude, I feel like a lot of people are kind of overly hating on this performance. I get that it wasn't the most exciting fight, the one they had at Noche UFC, but he's 19. Where were you at 19, dog? You know what I mean? Because I know for fucking sure I wasn't in that cage, all the pressure, putting on fights against grown-ass men and winning, in usually solid fashion as well. So I think this guy, you know, I'm not going to say he's going to be a champion one day because I don't know about that. It's really hard to predict and it's really hard to say all that, but he's got such a bright future. I think everyone's trying to rush it so hard. Like, have him fight 3 times a year, have him do this is like, and I get it. And just, I get that you kind of expect him to be at a certain point because of how much hype they're putting in him, because of how good he is. But look, dude, 19 is 19, all right? Let this guy gain experience. Let this guy, you know, and I like that he's active, and I appreciate that, but, like, let this guy just grow, man. You know what I mean? Like, his balls just dropped. So let him keep fighting. Let him try to figure shit out. Like, people are talking about giving him someone ranked next. As much as 4-1 in the UFC like he is super impressive, because it is 4-1 in the UFC, and bantamweight especially super fucking impressive. So I'm not saying that a ranked opponent is like super far away, but like, relax, dude. You know what I mean? And again, I think this performance is being overshit on. To be fair, was a boring fight. It was a stinker. Round 2 was pretty competitive. That was fun, but yeah, it was a stinker of a fight, whatever. But this guy's hot right now, and he got the whole fucking spear shouting Chawiwi. I say give him Ricky Simone. I say give Raul Rosas Jr. Ricky Simone next. I think it makes sense. Simone was doing really good on a solid fight win streak, and now he's 0-3 in his last 3. And this isn't Volkanovski either. He's not losing to fucking Makhachev and Topuria, all right? He's losing to guys like, well, actually, no, because he lost to Mario Batista and Song Yadong. I forgot who the 3rd loss was. So actually, those are pretty solid. Okay, the point is, this fight makes sense. I'm fucking rambling. This fight makes sense for both guys, right? Raul has a chance to kind of get someone with a bit more experience in there. Not that he hasn't fought experienced guys in there, obviously, but this is a guy who's been around. You know, I think you don't have to be a hardcore to know who Ricky Simone is. He's a recognizable enough name, and I think it's a still, even though he's not ranked and even though he's 0-3 in his last 3, it's still technically, I feel like, a step up in competition. It's a guy that can still be a threat and a challenge to Raul that doesn't have to be some marauder that's on some intense win streak, or he doesn't have to be ranked. I think this fight makes sense for both guys. I think Raul takes it, but it definitely is going to be his hardest test, in my opinion. I know C-Rod presented a lot of problems for him, and he lost that fight, but you live and you learn. Again, kid's 19. So I say make that fight. And that's going to be it, guys. Not really going to touch on the rest of the main card fighters or a few of the fighters on the prelims. I kind of just wanted to get this one in and out. I've already been rambling for fucking long enough. But thank you guys so very much for watching. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. I think these are fun fights to make. Maybe I'm wrong. And again, there's a lot of options out there, which is good. I feel like this is one of those cards where you can kind of have fun with it and mix and match opponents. It's not one of those cards where it's like you kind of know who's next for each person. So I don't know. Thank you guys so very much for watching All the Smoke MMA. We have no fight card this weekend, so that's fucking sad. But appreciate you guys, and have a good one.